I want you to picture something for a second. Just imagine a world where literally every single system you rely on is deeply, almost terrifyingly interconnected.
Right, like more than we usually realize.
Exactly. A world where, a waterway shutting down on the exact opposite side of the globe directly dictates the price of your morning commute today.
Oh, absolutely.
Or where, like, just a few lines of code hidden on some server somewhere, that actually decides how a massive multinational corporation handles a real-world physical crisis.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about it.
It really is, because that is the reality you're waking up to this morning.
And the connections between those things, they aren't always obvious to us. Usually everything runs smoothly in the background,
Right. Until it doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you start applying pressure to the system, suddenly those invisible wires connecting everything just light up.
Which is really our mission for today's deep dive.
Mhm.
We are looking at this massive stack of news from the Daily Tech Reader for August 15th, 2026.
And it is quite a stack today.
Oh, it's huge. We've got geopolitics, we have artificial intelligence, severe weather, global health.
Yeah, it's a lot of ground to cover.
And on the surface, it looks like this overwhelming flood of completely disconnected headlines. But if we actually cut through the noise, there is a very clear thread tying all these stories together today.
A very concerning thread, honestly.
Yeah. We are basically watching a fierce battle for control over highly vulnerable systems.
That's a great way to put it, because everywhere you look today, someone or something is really testing the absolute limits of how much stress our global infrastructure can take.
Before we jump into all the details, though, let's just set a really quick ground rule for today.
Good idea.
We are going to be looking at some politically charged global events today. We have actions from the U.S. president, we've got international standoffs, domestic policy debates.
Right, and people have strong feelings about these things.
Absolutely. So we need to make it totally clear that our role here is not to take a side. We are not here to tell you who is right or who is wrong.
Right, our goal is strictly to unpack the facts.
Just the facts and the different perspectives presented in our sources. We want you to understand the raw mechanics of what is happening in the world today without any of the political spin.
Because knowledge is most valuable when you actually understand the underlying causality. We're really looking at the how and the why behind the headlines here, not the rhetoric.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just start with the most immediate physical shockwave happening right now.
The big one.
The sudden closure of the world's most critical energy choke point, the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
As of Friday, 0 oil tankers were tracked passing through it. I mean, not a single one.
Which is just staggering. Just for context here, the Strait of Hormuz is the main artery for a massive percentage of the world's daily oil supply.
Right.
So to see vessel traffic just flatline to 0, that is an unprecedented disruption to global logistics.
Right. And basically, Iran has essentially closed the waterway. They are demanding that Washington acknowledge Tehran's control over the access, and they want them to accept their conditions.
Right. And in response to that, the U.S. is maintaining a naval blockade of Iranian ports indefinitely, and the Treasury is adding economic pressure.
Meanwhile, President Trump has asked Americans to accept higher gas prices. They are now averaging $4.08 a gallon.
Which is a significant jump.
Yeah, it's up 29% from just last year, and he's framing this as a necessary patriotic sacrifice.
Right.
Add to that, we have all this escalating violence in the region. There was a UAE ADNOC vessel that got attacked, which is like the third one in just a week.
Yeah, the third one.
And Houthi forces are actively targeting Saudi infrastructure, too.
The physical reality of a standoff like this goes so far beyond just the diplomacy of it. When you close a physical bottleneck, you trigger a massive logistical pileup.
I was thinking about it like pinching a garden hose.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. The water pressure doesn't just stop at the pinch. It builds up, it stresses the material, and eventually it bursts the pipe further up the line somewhere. So the Strait of Hormuz is the pinch, but the burst pipe is hitting our global supply chains everywhere else.
Right.
But when I look at the sources, it seems like the financial markets are entirely focused on just the commodity itself. I mean, Brent crude is near $88.52 a barrel.
Yeah, that's what the markets care about.
But I have to wonder if we are staring at a much deeper physical fallout that the financial sector is just, completely ignoring right now.
Well, the economic fallout is just the surface layer. The deeply concerning part of this story is the environmental catastrophe that is compounding in the background while the political actors just remain deadlocked.
Wait, what kind of environmental catastrophe are we talking about here?
Well, because of all the vessel attacks and the grounded ships, there are actually two massive expanding oil spills in the Gulf right now.
Two of them?
Yeah, two. One spill near Oman covers an estimated 2,000 square kilometers.
Wow.
And there's another slick near Ketchum Island, and that oil is already washing up onto the beaches there.
That's terrible. And normally when a spill of this magnitude happens, there's an immediate coordinated international maritime response, right?
Absolutely. That's the standard protocol.
You bring in the skimmers, the salvage crews, the containment booms.
Right. But because this is an active geopolitical conflict zone right now, those salvage and cleanup operations are completely paralyzed.
Because it's not safe.
Partly safety, but the conflict is directly delaying the permits needed for rescue teams to even enter the waters.
Wait, so they can't even get the paperwork approved to clean it up?
Exactly. Insurance companies won't underwrite the salvage vessels, and the governments won't clear them for entry.
Oh, man.
So human disputes are essentially allowing severe environmental damage to just multiply unchecked. We're so focused on the price of the crude oil that we are missing the fact that the entire ecosystem supporting the region is being smothered.
Because no one can agree on who has the authority to sign a piece of paper.
It is a textbook example of how fragile our systems are.
Yeah.
When you centralize so much reliance on one narrow physical waterway, a political disagreement creates a cascading failure that ultimately just poisons coastlines.
So the geopolitical choke point isn't just stopping the oil from getting out, it's actually physically blocking the help from getting in.
Exactly.
You know, watching these physical supply chains break down under human conflict, it really makes you look at our domestic infrastructure a bit differently.
Oh, definitely.
Because while governments are fighting over these man-made disruptions out on the oceans, nature is stepping in and just exploiting the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure right here on land.
Nature doesn't negotiate for access, It just finds the weak points and pushes.
It really does. Right now, Hawaii is under a state of emergency due to Tropical Storm Lala.
Yeah, that storm is massive.
They are facing the threat of up to 25 inches of rain in isolated parts of the Big Island.
25 inches. That's unbelievable.
We are talking massive landslides, disrupted medical services, utility failures. But what really strikes me is that a hurricane is a highly visible physical storm. You can see it on the radar.
Right, you know it's coming.
But the sources also highlight these really insidious, invisible threats pushing against our systems at the exact same time.
And those are almost scarier because the public health vulnerabilities are just flashing red across the board right now.
Yeah, I mean, we have a multi-state cyclosporiasis outbreak linked to contaminated lettuce.
Right.
That has hit 15 states so far and caused 2 deaths.
Wow.
On top of that, the U.S. has just hit its highest annual measles total in decades, which is primarily among the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, we have this dangerous, persistent heat that is just entrenching the South and the Southern Plains right now.
It's just relentless.
It's staying so warm at night that outdoor workers can't physically cool down enough to recover for the next day.
That is so dangerous.
So if you're looking at all these headlines today, you're probably feeling completely overwhelmed. I mean, I know I am.
It is a lot to take in.
Because you can board up your windows and buy batteries for a storm like Lala, sure. But how do you prepare for something invisible, like contaminated lettuce or a measles resurgence?
It feels overwhelming because we tend to treat these events as isolated incidents.
Right.
But there is a common denominator here. All of these crises expose the fragility of our complex supply chains and, really, the invisible infrastructure of public trust.
Let's break that down a bit. How does public trust actually factor into, like, a lettuce recall or a hurricane?
Okay, so just as the global energy market relies on the physical choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, your daily survival relies on incredibly complex, fragile systems that require human coordination.
Okay.
Take the cyclosporiasis outbreak. Cyclospora is a microscopic parasite, right?
Okay.
So when you buy a bag of pre-washed lettuce, you are trusting an enormous multi-state food processing system.
Because it's not just coming from one farm anymore.
Exactly. Modern agriculture often takes lettuce from dozens of different farms across multiple states, washes it in a central facility, and then bags it together.
Oh, wow. So if just one field has contaminated water, it just gets mixed in with literally everything else.
It becomes an absolute forensic nightmare to trace back to the source.
I can imagine.
You are deeply trusting the facility's safety protocols.
Right.
And when a hurricane hits Hawaii, Survival relies on an isolated electrical grid and the logistics chains that bring in those backup generators.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the measles resurgence, community immunity relies entirely on the invisible shield of public trust in vaccination rates.
So once that trust or that coordination fractures, the whole system just gives way.
Exactly. The breakdown of any one of these, whether it's a pathogen bypassing agricultural screening, or a power grid failing under 25 inches of rain, or a drop in community vaccination rates, it requires immense localized human coordination to fix.
Right.
You cannot solve a multi-state cyclospora outbreak with a military blockade.
No, definitely not.
You solve it with epidemiologists, food safety inspectors, and clear public communication. Nature is just remarkably efficient at finding the exact spot where our coordination is the weakest.
And nature exposing all these physical vulnerabilities, that is exactly what's driving the tech industry into an absolute panic right now.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because the biggest companies in the world are watching these physical supply chains break down, and they're realizing they just cannot afford that same fragility in the digital space.
No, they can't.
So the race to build independent digital fortresses is accelerating at this terrifying speed.
The scale of capital being moved to secure what they call digital sovereignty is staggering. We are talking about nation-state levels of investment here.
Yeah, according to the Daily Tech Reader, Apple is currently training an internally developed artificial intelligence model. And they're doing this to reduce their reliance on outside providers.
Right.
They are heavily prioritizing on-device processing and privacy.
Which is a huge shift.
And meanwhile, over in China, DeepSeek just launched their V4 Pro model. And this is wild. They've priced it up to 14 times higher than their V4 Flash model.
14 times, yeah.
Which proves Chinese developers aren't just, undercutting competitors on price anymore. They are offering highly capable, tiered models now.
They're going after the premium market.
But the headline that really illustrates the scale of this whole thing is Goldman Sachs.
Oh, yeah. This is massive.
They're discussing a $500 billion infrastructure financing arrangement linked to NVIDIA for AI data centers, $500 billion.
That is the kind of money historically reserved for building national highway systems, or like continental power grids. It's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Here is where I really need to challenge the logic of this, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Apple is legendary for its hardware, right? The iPhone, the Mac. Why are they suddenly reinventing the wheel to build their own massive AI model from scratch?
It's a fair question.
Building a foundational AI model requires specialized engineering and just an astronomical amount of compute. Why wouldn't they just buy the best off-the-shelf software from OpenAI or Google, integrate it, and run it on their devices?
Well, because in the AI era, the model is not just software you install like an app.
Okay.
It is the foundational infrastructure. Apple has realized that if they rely on a third-party cloud server to process their users' AI requests, they introduce latency, for one.
Because it has to bounce to a server and back.
Right. And they compromise privacy by sending data off the device. And most importantly, they lose total control over the core user experience.
And Apple loves control.
Exactly. By building an internal model that processes locally on the actual phone or laptop, they own the ecosystem end to end.
So they are looking at the Strait of Hormuz situation and deciding, yeah, we don't want to be reliant on someone else's choke point.
That captures the strategy perfectly. Tech giants are realizing that owning the foundational model is the digital equivalent of owning a global choke point.
That makes a lot of sense.
Look at DeepSeek. Just to clarify, their Flash model is essentially their lightweight, faster version.
Right.
By tiering their prices 14 times higher for the Pro model, they are establishing that whoever controls the most capable, heavy-duty intelligence commands an absolute premium.
Wow.
And look at the Goldman Sachs investment. $500 billion isn't going into code. It is going into the physical reality of AI.
You're talking about the concrete and the copper, the actual buildings?
Exactly that. Data centers require massive tracts of land. They need industrial-scale cooling towers and dedicated power substations that just pull megawatts from city grids.
It's intense.
Goldman Sachs and NVIDIA are literally building the physical ports and shipping lanes of the 21st century digital economy.
And if you don't own your own digital ports, you are incredibly vulnerable to all the chaos happening outside.
Oh, completely exposed.
Which brings up another massive story from the sources today. Hackers are claiming to have stolen mass data from absolute titans of physical infrastructure.
Yeah, this was alarming.
We're talking Shell, Philips, General Electric, Fiserv. Dozens of organizations hit. When you rely on external cloud systems or third-party vendors, your data is just out there in the wind.
And centralizing data in these massive external cloud systems means a single breach doesn't just hit one isolated company.
Right.
It cascades across entire sectors. Shell and GE aren't software startups. They operate actual power grids, medical technology, and oil refineries.
Physical infrastructure.
Yes. This is the exact vulnerability driving Apple to keep processing on the device. The mad dash to control the underlying infrastructure is driven by a deep fear of reliance on anyone else.
Let's add one more piece to this digital puzzle because it's kind of wild. OpenAI is actively testing an upcoming model right now to see if it possesses critical offensive cybersecurity capabilities.
Yeah.
They are deliberately probing to see if their own artificial intelligence can be weaponized to breach systems.
Because the builders of these systems are acutely aware that the tools they are creating are powerful enough to dismantle the very infrastructure we rely on.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Over 1,100 tech employees are actively calling for international coordination on this. The battle for digital control goes far beyond just capturing market share. It is fundamentally about systemic security.
All right, let's bring all of these massive macro trends. Global blockades in the Middle East, hurricanes in the Pacific, trillion-dollar AI data centers. Let's bring all that down to your everyday reality.
It's important to make that connection.
How does all of this actually reshape your daily life, your culture, and your career prospects?
Because the macro always trickles down to the individual experience.
Definitely. So from the sources, we know inflation-adjusted wages are lower right now, and that $4.08 gas is making the simple act of commuting more expensive.
Yep.
On the cultural front, France's highest court just blocked a national social media ban for children under 15.
I saw that.
The government tried to step in and mandate age restrictions. The court struck it down, and now the burden shifts completely back to parental controls and age verification software.
Leaving the parents to figure it out.
Right. Meanwhile, out on the streets, Pony.ai and Uber are deploying 2,000 robotaxis across Europe.
So the automation of everyday life is just accelerating while the institutional safety nets are pulling back.
Exactly. My commute costs more to get to work. When I need a ride, an AI might be driving my Uber.
Yeah.
And when I go home, the courts are leaving it entirely up to me to figure out how to police my kids' social media usage in an era of hyper-optimized algorithmic recommendations.
It's a lot to manage.
The individual is taking on a massive amount of the burden here. So where does human value fit into a highly automated, highly disrupted world? What does the job market actually look like in 2026?
Well, if we synthesize everything from the oil spills to the AI models, a very distinct picture of the future job market emerges.
Okay.
The sources note a surging demand for highly specific roles, like machine learning engineers for Apple, safety and compliance specialists for those Uber robotaxis, cybersecurity teams dealing with the Shell and GE data breaches, and environmental scientists for the Gulf oil spills.
Wait, those are all roles centered entirely around managing disruption.
Exactly. The ultimate takeaway here is that the most durable career advantage in 2026 isn't just knowing how to write code.
Because code is increasingly commoditized.
Right. The AI can write the code. The real premium is placed on the human ability to coordinate technical systems with dependable judgment during out-of-distribution, real-world crises.
Because the AI simply does not know what to do when physical reality breaks.
That's it. An algorithm can optimize a shipping route with perfect efficiency, sure, but it cannot negotiate a salvage permit in a geopolitical conflict zone when an oil tanker runs aground.
Right.
An AI can predict the exact path of Tropical Storm Lala, but it cannot physically rebuild Hawaii's power grid or mobilize utility crews in a flood zone.
Yeah, you need people for that.
And an automated age verification system cannot replace the nuanced, difficult conversation a parent needs to have with a 14-year-old about the psychological impact of social media.
So, human resilience and critical thinking are becoming the ultimate premium assets as our systems grow more complex and more brittle.
Because the systems are fragile. The human ability to bridge the gap when those automated systems inevitably fail, that is what holds the infrastructure together.
Wow. That is a surprisingly grounded way to look at a pretty intense stack of news today.
Yeah, it brings it all back to us.
Let's quickly recap the journey we've been on. We started by looking at the extreme physical choke points of global shipping, a total blockade in the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
And we explored how human conflict is paralyzing environmental cleanup. Then we looked at nature's choke points, from hurricanes to microscopic pathogens, exposing the deep fragility of our agricultural supply chains and public trust.
That invisible infrastructure.
Exactly. Then we pivoted to the digital fortresses being built by tech giants racing for sovereignty over massive, resource-heavy AI infrastructure.
Those half-trillion-dollar investments.
Yeah. And finally, we brought it back to you and how navigating this disrupted world requires human critical thinking more than ever before.
It really paints a comprehensive picture of a world in a very fragile transition.
It does. But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought.
Oh, I like these.
Just something to mull over on your own that connects a few dots we didn't explicitly spell out today.
Okay.
We know from our sources that OpenAI is actively assessing its upcoming models to see if they possess offensive cyber capabilities, right?
Yes.
At the exact same time, we know that mass data thefts have just hit foundational physical infrastructure companies like Shell, Philips, and General Electric.
Right. That's the intersection where digital tools meet physical, real-world assets.
Exactly. So ask yourself this. If our physical supply chains and our energy grids are this vulnerable to traditional geopolitical blockades and bureaucratic permit delays today, what happens tomorrow?
That's the big question.
What happens when these highly critical physical systems are fully integrated with and managed by the very AI models that are currently being probed for offensive cyber weapons?
Oh, wow.
Are we building a perfectly optimized, highly efficient digital world that is constantly just one hack away from total physical paralysis?
Because when every system is fully interconnected, a single point of failure doesn't just isolate an issue, it brings the entire machine to a halt.
It brings us right back to the beginning. We might be building the most advanced, interconnected infrastructure in human history, but we still have to ask ourselves, who really holds the keys, and what happens if the locks get changed? Keep questioning the systems around you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.